Vlogadome video reply back to Gary. I'm not quite finished watching the video that you've done, but I thought I'd get the video off tonight rather than waiting till tomorrow. I'll just start again. I won't refer back to much of what you said. Hits thumb with hammer. That's a classic. Hits thumb with hammer. That's one example. Looking at tree. That's our second example. I'm feeling depressed today. That's the third example. I'm feeling happy today. That's the fourth example. Hit hammer. Electrical and or chemical impulses go to the brainium. And things happen in the brainium. See a tree through the eye. Electrical and or chemical goes to the brainium. Things happen in the brainium. Right, so we're going to represent these two things. Somehow these impulses from the thumb and from the eye go to the brainium, and they represent as accurately as possible, so it's Darwinianly top, what has happened, and make the blood sac of human being acting in an appropriate way, automatically. So the information goes to the brainium, which is just meat and potatoes, with a few special chemicals and special electrical things that flash around in there. What happens is the pain impulses, but they're not pain impulses, are they? They're just impulses, go to the brain, and the brainium will see that an appropriate action is actioned. You see a tree, the brain does the appropriate thing, actions it. Okay, that's all. That's absolutely all. It doesn't have to do anything more. Okay, and then we've got these two things that don't come from outside into the brainium. They're just, as you said, they could have been bouncing around 10 years, but no, it's just the amalgamated bouncing aroundness makes one brainium be reacting to the outside world, or just being, we could say, depressed one day, or the next day it could just be sitting there happy. No amount of, well, we can imagine in a million years, if civilization could last that long, that science could see the difference in the brainium between any of these states. And it wouldn't really matter anyway, because it's meat and potatoes with a few special chemicals and bouncing some electrical signals around. You hit your thumb, electrical impulses come to the brainium, but the brain isn't hurt at all. It just makes the sack of meat and potatoes, the whole body, work and do something in an appropriate manner that's good for Darwinian evolution. You see a tree and it just does that. It's always just flapping around trying to do what's appropriate, but it's not thinking it's doing anything appropriate. That doesn't come into it. It just either happens that it's appropriate or not. But none of these signals, when they're inside the brainium, are any different from any of the others that could make any difference at all. A brain that's suffering is in no particular different state to a brain that's not suffering. You know, the happy brain or the unhappy brain. And even if they can find one's firing a bit more here and the other one's firing a bit more, it makes no difference. The first thing to take is that the brain isn't hurt when the thumb is hit. It just gets signals, exactly the similar signals that it gets when you see a tree. Okay. Now, the crucial thing in all of this is that all that is all that's happening, and it reacts to the outside world. Now, what I always get back from you is, I feel, I know how that can feel, I feel. I go, yes, we all know that Darwinianly is the appropriate response that has been built in, using your words, in a program that has a face up on the screen, the protect me, I don't want to be hurt program. But that program is not being hurt in the slightest by the thumb hit, there's no pain at all to that program that's running in the brainium. Or if it's represented by that, number 4 on the screen, that number 4 on the screen that's wailing about sore thumb is not in the slightest bit disturbed that the thumb is hurt. Not in the slightest bit. It's just doing its thing to try and do the appropriate thing to keep the human going through the world. What it comes down to is you, are explaining most of this is the brain is us somehow. Well, it isn't. Or it is. Oh, fuck. Nothing is being hurt. The thumb is hurt, you could say. But nothing in the brain's being hurt. If you're the most depressed day that you're ever having, there's nothing in the brain that's hurt. There's nothing in the body that's hurt. It's just what we could say, even acting irrationally to the outside world in a DNA sort of way. And as we've said, the DNA sort of way is the only way. That's the only game that's being played. So being depressed and not going around and shagging someone is being inappropriate. That's all we can say. But, I could get from the video that you just... The other one in the screen, the one up here, the one that has got the spiel on the YouTube, going that suffering is the only value in the universe, is going blue murder about what I'm saying, but not listening to what I'm saying. All it's thinking is, well, I'm going to lose my job here. You can blither on about value being the only, whatever it is, suffering being the only value in the world, if you like, but all I've got trying to get you to understand, couldn't think of a better word, is that there is no suffering. Because there isn't anything to suffer up in the head. The head isn't affected at all. So what's suffering? There is no suffering. And even if the thumb is smashed to bits, there's no suffering in the thumb, and there's no suffering in the head. Is there? Cut somebody's leg off with a chainsaw. There's no suffering in the leg, and there's no suffering in the head. It's only a program that's running that is programmed to go apeshit. That's all we've got. There's no suffering that you want to represent as suffering. The leg isn't suffering. The head isn't suffering. There's just a program going, well, I'm suffering. But it's only a program. And then you'll go, I know what it's like to suffer. And then I have to go, come on, Gary, we've got to go all the way back to the free will or the willpower, all that, to say, what are you? And then we have to go all the way back through, yes, I am only these programs that are running, etc. And that all that's suffering is a program that's running, and it's not suffering either. All it is doing, it's got to the, no, I'm suffering, press the I'm suffering button, and it's pretending to suffer. That's all there is. There is no suffering. I'll repeat it once more. Cut the leg off, there's no suffering in the leg. Cut that, up in the head, there's just electrical and chemical signals going around. There's no suffering in the head. All there is a program that runs to say, alarm, alarm, alarm. Who does it say it to? Now you're going to say me. But it doesn't, does it? That's the thing. It doesn't say it to anyone. It's a dwarf, and it shouts at the other dwarves. And dwarfs suffering or pretending to suffer isn't really a major event. Suffering is a wanky word, just like love is a wanky word, and all the other wanky words that we know about. Free, in free will, they're all wanky words. There is nothing to suffer. Only programs running. Programs running pretending that they're suffering is not really anything to write home about. It can't. There's nothing that can suffer. The brain can't suffer, and the programs can't suffer. The little people in the boxes can't suffer. There is no suffering. And then there's your little box there going, I'm out of a job. But it's only a little box with a little mouth giving it like this, and behind it there's only a program running, pretending. So the whole thing acts appropriately in a Darwinian way. But there's nothing to suffer at all. And you're going to come back and say, I know what suffering is. And then, again, we've got to go all the way back to what is the I that's suffering. And then we've got to go all the way forward again. And we know, because we've been through this over and over and over and over again, there is only programs running. And programs do not suffer. Bye.